Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today's video is a part 2 video of a 3-part video series on how to set up a reverse diet. Now, before you dive headfirst into the unknown, in today's video I share some important points for you to consider when it comes to setting up and planning out the duration of your reverse. Now in my next video, part 3, we jump into the specifics of how to make adjustments to your calories. So why are you reverse dieting? Well, there are several groups of people who may wish to reverse diet, and these include people who have the desire to improve their day-to-day energy levels, or where they might benefit from consuming more calories to improve their sporting performance. Another group of individuals who would benefit from reverse dieting would be those who, like me, have just recently ended a difficult diet and you simply want to increase your calories to an amount that's actually sustainable. You could also use a reverse diet as an alternative approach to slowly building muscle while limiting the amount of fat regain. But the key difference between a muscle building phase and a reverse diet is that muscle building phases usually have you targeting a set amount of weight gain each week or a goal weight to work towards every month. The goal of a reverse diet, however, isn't to gain weight intentionally, but it's to restore your metabolism. And if done correctly, can set limits to the amount of weight you gain over a given period of time. Another group of individuals who might benefit from a reverse diet are those who simply like the idea of having more calories and the flexibility to eat more food. To be honest, who doesn't want the ability to eat more if you felt restricted in the past? I know for me, that's certainly the case. There are also many people out there who still have a lot of weight to lose, but over the course of many years, they've noticed that the amount of food they now eat to maintain their current weight has decreased dramatically. Who here's heard somebody say before, "Oh, I hardly eat anything and I just can't seem to lose the weight," or "I only have to look at a chocolate bar and I've gained 5 pounds. So this is because chronic yo-yo dieting leads to a slowing down effect on our metabolism. Essentially, their metabolism adapts to those reduced calories during the diet efforts and it becomes more efficient. Now, in order for these folks to lose more weight, recovering their metabolism with multiple cycles of this reverse dieting might be the only option they have if they want to continue to lose weight and keep it off in the future. Now, the last group of people who could use a reverse diet are for those who no longer want to track their calories and they'd like to learn to eat more intuitively without dramatic changes in their body weight. In order to do that, however, many people require a far more robust metabolism than they currently have. So the reverse diet can help improve their calorie intake, and that would then allow them to eat more intuitively without those negative body changes. So this last point is something that I've spent a lot of time working on with my own clients. Now, I hear many women say 5 or 10 years down the line of having tracked their macros that they'd really like a break from it all and have the flexibility to eat more freely. But the reality is, if we listen to our internal hunger cues and we eat more mindfully, our calorie intakes may vary fairly wildly. And this depends on a multitude of things like variations in our daily exercise and activity levels, our environmental cues, social cues and emotional cues, as well as our hunger and appetite. And these are driven largely by our circulating hormones. Now, if our maintenance calories or your metabolism isn't in great shape, and what I'm about to say is even more important if you are already at a healthy body weight, or if you are very lean and much leaner than the average person, it might not be feasible to switch over to mindful eating practices without a fairly large shift in body weight, because our appetite might be far greater than our actual needs. And this is often due to our appetite regulating hormones being outside the normal ranges. So if you are somebody who wants to have the flexibility to eat more intuitively, you may like to plan out your reverse diet until you are within, say, 5% of your calorie calorie goal. That way, when your calorie intake does fluctuate from day to day, which it will, your metabolism will be able to accommodate those fluctuations in energy intake. So now that we've talked about the different groups of people for whom a reverse diet might be appropriate for, here are some key things to consider so that you know what you're working towards in your reverse diet and if it's realistic or not. So what are your calorie goals? What can you realistically maintain without feeling deprived? And remember, for many of you, it may require multiple cycles of reverse dieting paired with fat loss before you achieve your long-term physique goals. So be realistic and aim for a calorie amount that you know you can maintain comfortably, because you might be needing to commit to this process for a little while. So for me, this is easy. Anything under 2,000 calories per day, I know I'm going to have to make some fairly conscious low-calorie food choices. So you can forget about a packet of cookies every night and takeaway foods every day, because for me, on 2,000 calories every day, for me to feel satisfied and not be thinking about my next meal, I know at least 2 of my meals per day would need to have about 2 pounds of vegetables or an extremely high amount of dietary fiber. So be honest with this and think about what you are willing and able to sacrifice. So my next point or question is, what is your goal of body weight? And I want you to think about this not just in absolute terms, but with consideration for how much lean body mass you currently have and what you might like to have. Now, think about how much time is needed to actually accomplish that. So if you wanted to add 5 pounds of muscle before you diet down next, how long is that realistically going to take? Now, also factor in some losses in lean body mass, because it's highly unlikely that all our weight loss actually comes from fat tissue alone. Studies show that in drug-free populations, the average amount of lean body mass that can be built for females is about 0.5 to 1 pound per month. So I know we all have different physique goals, but you can do the math based on your individual goals and work out how long you might need to reverse diet for or build. And remember that anytime you spend worrying about a little bit of extra body fat or dieting is simply time that you aren't spending on your muscle building goals. So the next question that I'm going to ask you is, how much time can you commit to resistance training? This is also a very important consideration if you are somebody who is going to be using this time reverse dieting to actually add some lean body mass. It's also potentially one of the limiting factors for how high you can realistically get your calories up. So let's take that first statement about adding more lean body mass. So in order to make progress, we need to be able to commit a certain amount of time each week to lifting weights. It's this type of training that causes that mechanical tension and microscopic damage to our muscle tissue and is essentially what is necessary to achieve your muscularity goals. Now, if you don't commit a sufficient amount of time to this, then it won't happen. Period. Now, if we look at the second part of that statement about the amount of muscle that you have and it being one of the limiting factors for reaching your calorie goals, well, it's as simple as that. Muscle mass is one of the driving factors that help us to increase our basal metabolic requirements. And this is why my requirements and my current calorie intake at age 32, 65 kilos, is significantly higher than what they were when I was aged 22 and only 55 kilos. Don't let your fear of some short-term body fat regain be the reason for you not achieving your long-term physique goals or your calorie goals. The next consideration is, how recently have you finished a diet and how aggressive was that diet? The greater percentage of body weight you've lost over the course of your most recent diet and the longer you've been restricting your calories, the more likely you've been experiencing some degree of metabolic adaptation. Now, this means your body has had more time to become more efficient. Now, these adaptive mechanisms that are occurring from chronic dieting and extreme weight loss don't necessarily take place overnight either. So, if you want to achieve the best results from reverse dieting, you need to be prepared to invest as much time reverse dieting as the time you've likely spent dieting. So my next question is, how much body fat are you willing to regain? Now, this is an important question you need to ask yourself because, again, it might be the limiting factor for how high you can reasonably increase your calories. Now, there's definitely a ceiling when it comes to the amount of positive metabolic adaptation we can achieve at any given body weight. And how high that ceiling might be is going to be largely individual. Now, I'm often asked, well, why can't I just maintain all the weight that I lost after my diet? Well, it's not always possible because in many cases, your end of diet calories might be just too low and completely unsustainable. So a more realistic weight to maintain, however, or at least this first time around reverse dieting, might be a few pounds above your end of diet weight. And again, I encourage people to stop thinking about the short-term and very temporary body fat regain and instead focus on the positive long-term benefits that this small weight increase will have on achieving your dream goals. Now, the last point of consideration before you jump into the video on how to adjust calories is how much cardio and activity can you commit to? Now, it's one thing to want to maintain your current physique while you're restoring your metabolism, but what are you willing and able to commit to activity-wise? So I'll use myself as a practical example. Now, I may have the desire to maintain my recent stage lean physique. However, my final week's end of diet calories were pretty gnarly at 1,200 calories per day. This was coupled with around 60 minutes of high intensity interval training each week and around 10,000 steps or an hour of planned walking every single day. Now, that might sound realistic to some of you, but that's highly unrealistic for me from a time perspective, not to mention all those nasty physiological and psychological changes that were happening as I was dieting. So based on my schedule, I can realistically commit to about maybe 10 hours of planned activity per week, and that includes my cardio and my lifting. So I have to accept that with 6 hours of time, I'm now unwilling to commit to based on my current work schedule. And that equates to about 2,000 calories less per week or around 285 calories of energy expenditure less per day. I need to be okay with either some possible fat regain due to that large energy imbalance that's created, or be committed to reverse dieting very, very, very slowly to encourage some of that positive metabolic adaptation. But guys, the reality is that still may not be realistic if I want to be able to eat more and maintain that physique. So there you have it, guys. That's all the considerations I can think of, or those that I can think of off the top of my head for when it comes to setting up a reverse diet. Now, if you want to stick around and learn a little bit more about how to make calorie adjustments to when it comes to doing your own reverse, go and check out part 3 of this video series. Or if it all sounds a little bit too complicated and you'd like some support and accountability through your journey, please feel free to reach out to our team of nutrition coaches at Team Biolayne, or you can use my nutrition coaching app, Carbon Diet Coach. It has a reverse diet setting that literally coaches you through week to week, just like you would if you were working with a one-on-one coach. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching, guys. I hope that you found this video helpful, and I will see you next time.